So, hello and welcome to Biogas TV. I'm the host, Paul Green, and I run a RNG advisory business. We air every Monday at noon, and we are the top live streaming biogas TV show in the world. I'm here with my sidekick, Drew Puchot of Equus Energy, who will close out the show with his offtake roundup piece. We are heavy in the thick of season 5, which is featuring the use of RNG as a fuel for vehicles. Today, we're very pleased to feature Jennifer Stokes with Centerpoint Energy. Centerpoint is
Hello.
a large energy utility that provides electricity and gas to millions of customers in the heart of the US. Welcome, Jen. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
We're so pleased you are with us. So, give us a quick high level on what you do there at Centerpoint.
So I have been with Centerpoint for almost 19 years. Um, right now, I work with all of our customers or potential customers who want to inject RNG into our systems. So I manage the interconnection process. I am not an engineer. I'm related to a lot of them, but I am not one. And as I say, I know just enough to be dangerous. So I handle that side of things. So I've got projects here in Minnesota, which is where I'm based out of, and then in Indiana, Ohio, and down in Texas. And I've also worked with natural gas vehicles. So my work truck is an NGV. And additionally, I work with a lot of our large fleets, everything from installing new fueling stations, whether it be a slow fill or a fast fill, um, all the way to just educating people on what it is. So, yeah, I've been involved with that for about 14 years.
Great. So this crowd is the hardcore biogas crowd, and we're looking to move more biogas, and we just see transportation as being this awesome market, and we want to do everything we can do to help it grow. Are you seeing more CNG fueling stations in your territory?
It has been over the last few years, it has been a little, and I don't want to say stagnant because that's not a great word to use, but we haven't
Mhm.
seen a huge amount of new development. Um, the fleets that understand the value of it, so your medium duty, your heavy duty, especially return to base fleets, a lot of them, especially the waste haulers, have figured out that this is a really, really great program, and a great fuel because not only are they saving money hand over fist, because diesel prices have been elevated for quite some time. There's also the environmental benefits of it. And with vehicles, there is already a market kind of already set up. Whereas with using RNG for heating purposes, whether it's industrial or commercial, those markets are still developing. So, yeah.
So you mentioned the waste hauling business really has embraced CNG, RNG in a big way, and you touched on medium heavy back to base. So where's the uncaptured opportunity there? Where's the little gold nugget sectors that are just haven't smelled the coffee yet and really should be getting on board?
Yeah, it's the basically like laundries. If you have a commercial or industrial laundry, because they know where they're going. That's one of the easy ways to do it because you've got to put the right amount of tanks. So you've got to tank the vehicle correctly. And fun fact is you can actually move the tanks from vehicle to vehicle because they have a very long lifetime or lifespan. Um,
So,
delivery.
so you can save money on the cost of the conversion by utilizing the fuel tank over
Yep,
the life of more than one vehicle.
correct.
Okay, that's interesting because that's something nobody has touched on before.
Yeah.
And it's been mentioned a couple of times in our shows before that, sizing and accurately fitting the fuel tank is important because that's a significant portion of the cost. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, yeah. It's the fuel tanks have a 20-year life. And depending on for how long you drive a truck, um, you can move it from vehicle to vehicle. So
Right.
that is something that we've seen. And, I've spent many years educating folks on, because there's concerns. They're like, well, what is it going to explode? I'm like, actually, you can shoot a CNG tank with a rifle and it'll bounce off of it. So,
Really?
because they're made with carbon fiber. So they are extremely safe. It's not to say that things haven't happened, but I feel perfectly comfortable driving my truck, which runs off of both gasoline and natural gas.
So tell us about your truck a little bit. That sounds
So
pretty
it's a
awesome.
Yeah, it's an F-150. It is a Centerpoint purchased it however many years ago, a while ago. And basically we had an upfitter make the changes. So they had to put hardened seats and valves, and basically put a new brain in the computer or a new computer in the truck. And I've got it basically I can have it's a 20 gasoline gallon equivalent tank, and I have a regular full-size gasoline tank. So if I really wanted to push it, I could probably make it from my house out to my parents' retirement house out in Colorado without having to fill up if everything went perfectly. So
That's
Well,
pretty
about how
amazing.
far is that?
about 900 miles.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. That's quite the trip.
It
How
would
do
be
you,
pushing
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But in
Yeah.
theory, I could do it.
Do you notice much of a difference in performance when you're on one fuel or the other?
Nope. Nope.
Nothing.
It's especially with the lighter duty vehicles, but I know with our heavy duty vehicles that we work with, that used to be a pretty big concern was the loss of horsepower. That doesn't really seem to be an issue anymore. The other concern is that up until recently, the largest diesel engine that you could get was a 13 liter. So now you can get up to a 15 liter. Cummins basically redesigned the whole thing from the ground up. So it's actually designed to be a CNG engine, whereas previously it was a diesel engine that they made some changes to.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
working
And
on some terminology then, so help us, what is the delineation between a medium duty and a heavy duty? Do we define that by weight or horsepower?
It's usually by weight. So like a medium duty would be like a big UPS truck. A heavy duty is a waste hauler or a semi tractor or one of those. It's everything from a class 6 to a class 8. Well, I think class 4 is considered medium duty as well.
Okay. So you kind of lifted up the laundry niche. Is that a medium duty? Is that how it is that
Yeah.
kind of can fall into that conversation?
Yep, it's a medium duty. Basically, anybody that puts a lot of miles on the vehicles, that's how you get the payback. The To be able to upfit the systems, there is an additional cost. Now, the difference between diesel costs and CNG costs is even when diesel goes down a little bit, it still makes a lot of sense. You can buy it, you go to Quick Trip or wherever it is that they have a public fueling station. Depending on that specific station, it's somewhere usually between 250, 350 a gallon for a diesel gallon equivalent or a gasoline gallon equivalent. So you're still saving a lot of money. Yeah. We've realized that a lot of people want it to be green, but when it comes down to it, if it doesn't pay for itself, people are not going to do it.
Right, right.
we've definitely seen that in a lot of portions of, the energy transition market as brokers ourselves in the last few years. Uh, just from a personal perspective, is there a reason why? Now, you mentioned that Centerpoint bought the vehicle, but like from you personally, do you feel like CNG versus electric, if there was something that kind of drove that decision, or how did that work for you?
It's with the CNG where it really makes financial sense is with the medium and heavy duty.
Hmm.
Back when it first started, Honda was making a CNG, and there are certain areas of the world where that actually does make a lot of sense.
Mhm.
The position, I think that whether formally or informally, is just we do what makes sense.
Yeah.
We know that if you were to try and convert a waste hauler to electric, my understanding is it would add an additional 9 tons of weight from the batteries. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. If you already have a technology that exists, and CNG vehicles have been around for a very, very, very long time. One of my coworkers is actually from Pakistan, and he's noted multiple times, he's like, yeah, pretty much everything that you see in Pakistan is a CNG vehicle. So it's just, it makes sense. And that's the thing that we encourage, especially if it's for a fleet, because that way they can actually put their own station in.
Mhm.
So with slow fills, they come in when their route is done, whenever that is done, whatever the business is. They connect to the CNG fueling station, and because it's slow fill, it's a little bit more cost effective on their side as well. You don't have to pay for as much compression. And then they basically fuel up overnight, which, and from a utility perspective, we really like that because that's not when our heavy load time is. In the winter, when it's about 6 a.m., everybody's taking a shower. That's usually when we see our peak. And by then, most of the CNG vehicles are done fueling.
Got it. Yeah, well, so gas doesn't have the same on-peak and off-peak market pricing that power does. Um, do you know if Centerpoint gets because you mentioned it earlier that there wasn't a whole lot of new station builds that you're noticing at Centerpoint, but what about behind the fence stations or private stations as opposed to public? And also kind of off of that, is there a big difference between those private stations and what they need in order to get set up? I mean, I know it's a slow fill, so it's a lower compression, but do you guys have any insight on what the differences between some of those stations are and what they can service?
Yeah, it's for us, if it is a slow fill station, it's generally speaking, and I don't want to say anything that will get me in trouble with my engineers, but generally speaking, we have more opportunities. If we're dealing with a public fast fill station, it has to be located somewhere within our system where we have a lot of excess capacity. Um, because when those come on, you want to have it connected to a bigger pipe that has
Mhm.
more room to grow. Whereas if it's a smaller slow fill station, which companies like Waste Management are continuing to add to their fleets. So when they have those, we can do stuff that's a little bit more outside of the metro area, outside of our big pipes. Um, they still get, my engineers get a little nervous when the customer comes in and we ask them what pressure they would want, and they
Yeah,
say 150, and I'm like, wait, no, that's not what they actually need. That's what they would like.
sure. Naturally.
Yes, so that
You
that
always
has
have to play
been,
a little bit of
yeah,
a broker
definitely
role
a
there,
differing factor of, okay, I know what you want,
huh?
but what's the bare minimum of what you need?
Yeah,
So that's been an interesting conversation.
And
yeah,
again, this fast fill, slow fill thing seems pretty critical, right? So back to base, if you have your own fueling station and you can slow fill overnight. So we got a question here from Ashton. He's in his market, he's seeing CNG for 365 at GGE, and then next door, gasoline is at 350. So that's a little bit of a flip, right? You've got CNG actually higher than gas, and I guess I'll let you touch on this, but I mean, I think the industry's best competitive alternative is diesel, which is more expensive, but maybe fast fill CNG is pricier because of all that equipment. Is that why that would be?
Well, it's a couple of different things. So if you're seeing it posted, that is a public station. So that is just like if when you buy diesel or gasoline, what you're paying is not what the purchaser of the base fuel is paying. So that builds in the cost of having a fast fill station. But yes, the alternative 99% of the time is not gasoline. The equivalent is usually diesel, which when I checked, it's still over $4 a gallon.
yeah. Yeah, Ash and I will throw out that, and to just kind of continue on what Jennifer is saying is that there are a number of stations that will have fleet cards available and specific pricing. And one of the things that we see at Equus is a little bit of this kind of data chicken and egg between, okay, where can we put a station that is public fillable, fast fill station, and has access to that kind of capacity on the pipe, but will also have customers that will pull into the station and utilize it often enough to make it worth doing from their end. And so that's something that we deal with a lot. Would love to work with Centerpoint more on that, in fact.
Yeah, when we were working with Quick Trip, because they initially were one of the first ones in the region to kind of implement it, they actually put CNG stations where their fleet would use it. So they were their own, their base fleet or their anchor tenant, so to speak. And then they would look around and see if there were any other already converted fleets, whether it was a waste hauler or UPS or one of those. And then they would work with them to see if they wanted to lock in. There's a lot of different ways to do it. And, even if you're on like a milk run. So with our dairies a lot of them are the ones who are participating in the RNG digesters, they have a fixed route and they run 24/7, 365 because the cows continue to be milked, whether it's a holiday or not. So those are great options as well. And when you figure in the whole life cycle, being able to use RNG within a CNG vehicle is a great option.
Cool. We've got a question came in from Jim. What does Centerpoint see as the most significant barrier to the expansion of CNG in the Class 8 truck market in the US? And what is the most promising option to remove that barrier?
They're the same thing. It is the new engine that is available from Cummins, the 15-liter. There is a price premium for it, but we know that once something becomes more available, the cost will come down. So that is one of the big hurdles, especially up until this point, is there wasn't a 15-liter that was readily available that was a straight CNG engine. If you want to get one, I believe that there's a little bit of a wait for one, but I know that they're more than happy to work with you.
Okay. Jeff asked, would school bus fleets be a candidate vehicle pool? And you touched on earlier this call, the need to just be driving a lot of miles.
Yeah. This is a terrible answer, but it depends. A lot of it, as I said, if it's a school district that doesn't have a really long summer break, if they're in school more often than not, those can work, especially if the buses are driving long distances. But in order to make it work, to convert all the vehicles and to bring in new fueling, you really need to have a lot of miles that they're putting on an annual basis. So there are some where it works, and there's some that have been very successful. I know that especially with other heavy duty, with the trash hauler, with the waste haulers, the people that come and pick up my garbage, we realized that when they converted to CNG, a lot of people missed bringing down the garbage in time, because you can't really hear the vehicles nearly as much as when they were diesels.
Yeah. And then Kevin makes the point about school buses can be challenging OEMs because companies like Bluebird are going all plug-in and they're not doing CNG.
Yeah, and some of that has to do with regional. It's, as I mentioned, I'm up in Minnesota, so it does get cold here. Right now it's really hot, but in not too long it will be really cold again. So electric with the bigger vehicles isn't always a great option, but it is something. There's also a lot of funding available for electric vehicles. Some of that funding is sunsetting. A lot of it was related to the Volkswagen funding, which is basically just helping offset emissions that they got in trouble for. So again, it's, I guess, the main point that we make or that I try to make, is figure out what makes sense for your fleet. If there's a station that already exists and you don't have to buy it or build it, that can ease up some of the limitations. If you're able to do a slow fill, that helps as well.
Got it. So tell us about your NGIA pilot program for RNG.
So Minnesota, we were able to work with our legislature a few years ago and pass into law our Natural Gas Innovation Act, which allows us being Centerpoint, the utility, and other gas utilities in the state of Minnesota, to kind of go outside of the norm of your energy efficiency projects, which we do already have a program for. So with NGIA, we are able to purchase the environmental attributes of RNG. So we had an RFP a few years ago. We are fully subscribed. It is a pilot program. So I believe we're purchasing it from 4 or 5 different producers, everything from a dairy to a landfill, and quite a bit in between. So we have some coming online that are going to be actually built on our system, that we're going to be purchasing both the brown gas and the environmental attributes, so a bundled product on. I think we're required to spend, it's either 50 or 60% of our budget on gaseous fuels. So that includes RNG, but then also hydrogen. We actually have a hydrogen plant at one of our facilities. And I believe we're going to be building a second one. But we're also doing things like carbon capture, and I think we're looking at doing a network geothermal, and we're kind of, the saying goes, we're taking all the spaghetti and throwing it at the wall and see what sticks. So
Right.
it's NGIA allows us to recover those costs via our rates. So we will be delivering, or we actually already are, purchasing environmental attributes on behalf of our commercial, industrial, and residential customers.
Mm-hmm. So everybody gets treated in the same way that RNG would pass through to all the ratepayers, but you don't have like a voluntary renewable heat type of program?
Not yet. We've looked at doing it. As I said, when we initially proposed our green tariff, it was, I want to say 2019. At that time, there were not any RNG facilities that were currently producing RNG in Minnesota that were being injected into the pipeline system. That has changed. We now have our interconnection tariff here in Minnesota. But we also realize that there is somewhat of a demand. So if it is something that you're interested in, please let us know. But depending on where you're located, I know Madison Gas and Electric, they actually have a voluntary program. There are other ones throughout the country. If your utility doesn't have a voluntary program, it's not to say that you can't participate. There are plenty of organizations out there that will help you purchase environmental attributes on behalf of your company, whether it's for heating purposes or through RINs for your vehicles.
Okay. Question came in from Tom. So he's curious about your hydrogen story. Do you know much about it? Is it an electrolysis plant or is it something else?
It is. So it is located at what we refer to as our river building. So it is originally, we had a coal gasification plant there, and this is like 130 years ago. So a very long time ago. Because of that, we have to treat all of the groundwater. So we have very, very pure, clean water that we have available. And a few years ago, one of our engineering directors, I think he saw some of this coming down the line. He's like, well, we should probably see what happens when we inject hydrogen into our system and how it impacts the pipes and if there's corrosion issues. So, which is essentially why we did it in the first place. It is not large. It's a 1 megawatt plant. It does run off of renewable power. So it took a while to get some of the kinks worked out. Whenever you do something first, it sometimes is a bit of a challenge.
It's running. It's making product. It's running.
Yes, it is.
Cool.
There has been some concern with the operators of natural gas vehicles, but because of the volumes that we're talking about, it is less than 1% of the gas by the time it gets to their fueling station, if it even gets to them.
Mhm. So you're putting hydrogen into the methane pipe? Aha. Okay. So you don't have a dedicated hydrogen user for
Not
pure
not at this
product.
time, no.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Fascinating. Okay. Well, wonderful. Looks like we've tended to the questions that have come in. So what didn't we ask, Jen? What should our listeners know?
I think the main takeaway is, when we were talking as a utility with, let's say, the MPCA, who were the ones who were administering the funds for Volkswagen, initially their reaction was, it's like, well, we can't give special preference to anybody. And I think my immediate response is, we don't want special preference. We just want a level playing field. We know that when you look at the environmental benefit, especially if you're using RNG as your fuel, it is by far the best option for medium and heavy duty vehicles, as far as emissions. Um, and it's a proven technology. It exists. It works. When we worked with fleet managers, and their staff who actually work on the vehicles, they love them. When they change the oil, it is not a gross color. The guys who are operating it, the feedback that we've heard is they love it because when they go home, they don't smell, because the exhaust isn't stinky. You don't need DEF, those type of things. So, and a lot of the people who have implemented it have actually had really good results. And I don't want to say they're laughing the way to the bank, but some of them kind of are, because it's once you've purchased the equipment and you own it, it is very, very cost effective.
Parting question here from Jim. Does Centerpoint see RNG, CNG competing successfully with biodiesel in the upper Midwest?
I don't know. It's obviously that whether it's ethanol or biodiesel, there are a lot of supporters. Again, it's not to say we're necessarily competing with them. There's applications where CNG works really well. There's other ones that don't. If you don't have a fueling station, it's not a great option.
Yeah.
If you're not able to, if there isn't natural gas in the region, obviously CNG isn't going to work.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well said. Well, Jen, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your knowledge and your experience. We've all learned a lot today. Medium and heavy vehicles
Yeah.
and back to base, and everybody should be running on RNG for those niches.
Absolutely. I can nerd out on this till the cows come home. I've been hearing about it since I was a kid. So
Yeah.
my dad actually used to develop these projects when I was a teenager. So,
We talked
yeah,
about biogas and manure at the dinner table for decades.
yeah,
Okay.
landfill gas and
Hmm.
on-site generators. And yeah, I was kind of nerdy.
It's an
Still
infectious
kind of
story.
am.
Once you're in, you can't get out.
No, you can't. You're stuck.
We're stuck. That's right. Good. Well, Jen, thanks again. We're going to close the show out with Drew with his off-take roundup. But Drew, what do you got for us?
So today we're going to talk a little less about RNG offtake specifically and focus a little bit more on some of the credit markets and their pricing. As we always touch on in the past, D3 RINs have been gaining traction. Spot LCFS pricing is up to $73.50. But part of the reason why the D3 RIN price keeps creeping up and up and up is from D4 pricing. And it's not something that we usually see focus on in the industry, in the RNG industry. D3 RINs right now are right around 267, and D4 has been pushing. Actually, I should have had that up in front of me. D4 is right around 245, if I'm saying that correctly. Just double 240, which is a lot of that is relevant because the D4 price can be met, or the D4 obligation can be met with a D3 RIN. And a lot of people in the RNG space don't talk about that. But ultimately, what that means is that, in theory, the D3 RIN should always have some kind of premium to the D4. So if the D4 price goes up, inherently, the D3 price should also go up. Even though the supply and demand for these RINs can operate separately. And then the question becomes, well, what's raising the D4 price? If we're in a situation where we've got all of the RNG we're producing going to the transportation market and all of it's being utilized there, then why would that price move? Well, again, it comes back to the D4 RIN. And so what's moving the D4 RIN? Well, as we know, the RFS this year is higher than it ever has been before. That's not the only thing that plays in. An important contributor will be on July 1st, the city of Portland is going to require 50% of renewable diesel be blended into all diesel sales in the city with a target of 99% by 2030. That is going to be a significant impact on its own. Estimates for Portland diesel fuel consumption is somewhere around 340,000 gallons per day. So these supply and demand metrics are always shifting with each other, and you kind of have to keep your eye on all of them. But it's definitely sounding like our D4 prices are going to continue to creep up over the course of probably the next year or so. How high that goes, we remains to be seen.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Good stuff. Well, Jen, again, thank you. Drew, appreciate it. If anybody wants to talk to us, LinkedIn's always a good way to find us. Just ping us anytime. We close out season 5 next week with a huge CNG hauler who's going to be with us. So with that, we're a wrap. Everybody have a good 4th, and thanks for joining.